This is the third video in the sequence of implicit intents with Android. Our first video was an overview. Our last video showed how to invoke the camera to, with just about 4 lines of code, invoke the camera and then get a result back that we could put in a thumbnail like this. In our next video, we're going to go to the advanced search screen and we're going to simulate this a little bit of the search by color that exists on the live plantplaces.com. Right now, the search only allows us to search by name. What we're going to do is we're going to have a gallery view here as well, where we can pick an image from our phone, and in theory, we could do a search by color. Now, we won't implement the true search by color entire algorithm. We're just going to make the ability to pick an image from the gallery view. Then what we'll do, possibly in a later video, is we'll see how we can change plantplaces.com, the actual mobile app, to receive an implicit intent and reuse the color algorithm in plantplaces.com. So that's where we're going to go. Our first step is going to be to add another button to this search form that allows us to pick a photo from the image gallery. Just like using the implicit intent for the camera, we're going to use an implicit intent to invoke the image gallery. And it's just like the implicit intent for the camera. It's only going to take a few lines. It's actually pretty fast and straightforward. So I'm going to go to our project. And by the way, if you're viewing this video and you have not read any of the previous videos, the source code for this video is available on GitHub. My username is DiscoSpiff, and this project is 14SS Plant Places. And if you take a look, you'll see that I'm making very frequent commits. After just about each video, I make a commit to GitHub. So not only can you see the source code, and it's freely available, but you can also see what I've changed in the source code. So that link I will post with this video, but it's at github.com, DiscoSpiff, 14SS Plant Places, and it is an open project, so anyone can go in and view it. Okay. So I'm going to go to Advanced Search Layout, the advanced search.xml, and I'm going to go to the graphical layout. This will take just a moment to load. I'm going to add a button. We'll make it right under search, line parent left, and yep, that looks good. Remember, the very first thing we want to do when we add any component is we want to edit ID. I'm going to call this btn select picture. Okay. And we will say right click and we'll edit text, and we're going to make a new string for this as well. We'll call this string LBL select picture, and we'll say select a picture. So the idea is we can pick a picture and do a search by color. Again, this probably will break into 2 different videos, getting the image gallery on this video, and then in the next video, making an implicit intent and calling that implicit intent. So we choose OK and select a picture. So we've changed the ID, we've changed the name. Okay. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to Other Properties, see if we have it in Recent. Oh, great. Recent, and then OnClick. If you don't see OnClick and Recent, go to All by Name. It's quite a long list. Hopefully, if you followed along the videos, you'll see Recent and then OnClick. Okay, give it just a moment to come up. Hopefully I did that right. Oh, let me try one more time. Other Properties, Recent, OnClick. There we go, that's what we're looking for. I'm going to say on, so what do we call it? Select a picture, I believe. Yeah, on select a picture, click, highlight, Control-C, and choose OK. Okay. Underneath this, we're going to put an image view. I've had mixed success with the image view from here, so I'm not terribly worried if this doesn't work, but we'll hope it will. Okay, I drop an image view. We're just going to say OK. We'll leave it with the default image. I'll tell you what, let me Control-M so we can maximize our WYSIWYG editor here. And we have a relative layout. I'm going to stretch this guy to go all the way to align parent right, and then stretch them all the way to align parent bottom. So basically this image view consumes the entire real estate of the screen. Now I'm going to save, And then I'm going to right click and edit ID because we know we always want to change the ID as soon as we can. So I'm going to say IMG plant search, something like that. IMG plant search or search by color, something like that. And we'll choose OK. Okay, that'll work. And then we choose save and we're good. Okay, remember when I right clicked and I said other properties, recent, and then we said, and this falls off screen, we said on click. I typed in a name and I copied it into my clipboard. Okay, we're going to need that now. I'm going to Control M, and the activity that is supporting this is called Advanced Search Activity. I'm going to click in there, bring up the source view, Control M. Control M will let me focus on this source. Now what I need to do is add a new button that will handle that on click. So I'm going to say public void. We need that part of the signature. We need the public access modifier, the void return type. Control V is the method name. Open parenthesis, view V is the parameter variable passed in. Unselect a picture click, view V. I'll put some Java doc up here that says this button or this method is invoked when the select a picture button is pressed, and that kind of goes without saying. That's why we want descriptive method names. We don't want, we want method names that are appropriately descriptive so that we don't have to put too many comments. In most cases, there are some cases where we do want method names like execute or run if we don't know what's going to be happening when we run the method, but that's a different story. Okay, on select a picture click. And here is where we add our logic to invoke the gallery view. Now what I like about this as compared to the camera implicit intent is that we get to see more ways to invoke an implicit intent. With the camera, all we had to do was specify an action. But we know that for some implicit intents, we need an action, a category, data, and type. In this case, we're going to specify an action, and we're also going to specify data and type. So let's start with the action. We say intent, photo picker intent equals new intent. Now remember, this is an implicit intent. We're not specifying a target here. We're not saying exactly where we want to go. We're just saying what we want to do. What do we want to do? Intent.actionPick. Okay, we want to pick an image, and we see there are a lot of other options here, maybe more appropriate for what you want to do. Insert, main, media, all kinds of things. Media finished, media removed, lots of things we can do. We want to pick something. Okay, pick an item from the data returning what was selected. That sounds really vague. Pick an item from the data returning what was selected. But what we have to understand is the data is the directory where we're going to be looking for images. And what was selected is whatever image was selected. Output, the URI of the item that was picked. Again, if you're new to programming, that probably doesn't make any sense. What that means, though, is the file location where we found the image, the file location of the image that we picked. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say action pick. Now we know that and I'll put some comments here. We want to pick an image from a gallery, so specify the action pick. That's really the best words I can put around that. Now next, what we're going to want to do is we're going to specify where to find the image using data. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to say environment, get external storage, public directory. This one's kind of a long-winded thing. Environment directory pictures. Okay. Get path. Wow, look at that. What this is saying is give me the path where we store images. It's a good idea to use the common default path that's used in Android because then you know the user's getting a seamless experience. if the user takes an image with a camera, you'll be able to see that in this directory. It's very long-winded, but it's saying give me the path where we store images, or let's say the file system directory. Now, if you watch closely, you notice that environment.directory pictures, there were actually some other options that came up. Let me type in this. Environment.directory alarms, directory DCIM, directory downloads, directory movies, music, notifications, pictures, podcasts, ringtones, so on and so forth. So if your app, if you're doing any kind of playing audio or playing video, for audio, consider music. For video, possibly movies. And what does this actually point us to anyway? Where are we going with this? Well, there's this handy tab. Let me squeeze a little bit. I'm going to save. You see this? Okay, disconnect from the debugger. You see up here we have this thing called DDMS. If we pick that, and if we're currently running an Android emulator like we are doing, this will show us the directory structure of that emulator. This will show us that directory structure. If I go to storage, SD cards, we'll see that we have a bunch of directories here like pictures, okay, alarms, movies, music, things like that. So when we're doing this long-winded method call here of get external storage public directory environment directory pictures, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, can you give me access to the pictures on this device? That's basically what we're doing. So I go back now to Java View, and one trick is that we're retrieving the path, but at this point we're not doing anything with it. Allow me to expand this so we can see a little bit more. We're retrieving the path, but at this point we're not doing anything with the path. So I'm going to hold Control and press 1. I'm going to say assign to new local variable. And we see what it gives us is a string path. Okay, so we're getting closer. We need to actually convert this to a URI or a universal resource indicator. Okay, convert to URI because that's what our gallery is expecting. Okay, convert to a URI because that's what our gallery is expecting. So we just, that's pretty easy. All we have to do there is say URI.parse. So a string is pretty dumb, to be honest with you. It's just a set of characters. To give it more intelligence, we actually have to convert it to a URI. So in this case, we have to convert it to a URI. Again, convert to local variable. We're going to call this, let's say, pictures path, something like that, or pictures directory. How about that? Pictures directory. That's a little bit better. So it's a few more lines than the camera view, but nonetheless, we're getting there. Okay, next, what we have to do, remember when we call an implicit intent, the things we might need to pass it. An action, optionally a category, data. Data is kind of misleading. Data is something like a directory where we want to look for images. And as part of data, sometimes we have to pass type as well. And we have to do that because we're not only giving a directory, but we're also saying this is what I want to get out of the directory. So I'm going to say set the data and type on this intent so we tell it where to look for files and what file types we want. Okay. So we're going to say photo, I'll control space, see if it will autocomplete for me, photo picker intent, dot set data and type. Okay, the URI, pictures directory. Now the type, that's like a MIME type, multiple internet messaging extensions. So what we could do is we could say image-jpg, or if we just wanted JPEGs. Or we could say image.jpeg, sometimes people abbreviate it like that, image GIF, image PNG, depending on how we want to limit this. Now, better option, all images. Let's just go ahead and show all images. What are all of the options that we could put there? If you go back to the first video I did on intents, you'll see that we went through a list of the different media types that you can use for image, for audio, for video. So again, if I said on your project description, gosh, this would be a great use for an implicit intent, and you're not doing a camera, but maybe you're doing audio or something like that, go back and look at the different MIME types that you can pass in. But the idea is, this is where you would pass in that MIME type. Okay, finally, start the activity and tell it we want a result. Okay, so we're going to say start activity. I'll control space, let it autocomplete for me. Start activity for result, photo picker intent, and as before, we need to give it some unique number that it doesn't matter what the value of the number is, it just has to be a unique identifier, like your social security code, something like that. Something that identifies what this is. Now, number means nothing to us. It's much more descriptive if we name this number and we refer to it by its name. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to call this image gallery results, or something like that. Image gallery would probably be just fine. Let's go ahead and leave it like that. Now you see, that's just a variable that represents the number 10, but when we call the variable image gallery, that makes a lot more sense than just a random number 10. So at this point I save. Because I'm calling start activity for result, we know that we're going to get a result returned to us. We know we're going to get a result returned to us. And when we get a result returned to us, it comes to us through onActivityResult. Okay, well remember here, we already have an onActivity result defined, because if I put plant name redbud, it's going to go to the results screen. I'm going to click on one, I'm going to click on the redbud, and then it's going to jump back. Okay, it's going to return back. So we're already calling an activity that's going to return something to us. Okay, we're already calling an activity that's going to return something to us. Now we're calling yet another activity that will return something to us. And that's going to call back the same onActivityResult method. So just like before, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to figure out which activity is calling us back. And that's where that unique identifier, image gallery, comes in handy. So take a look. Notice when I click next to this close curly, the open curly highlights. What I'm going to need to do now is say else if, and once again we're going to want to compare this request code. Else if request code equal, and what are we going to compare it to? Well, that's the request code we passed in, the one called image gallery. Else if request code equal image underscore, I'll control space, let it autocomplete, and then I'll put a comment, if we are here, we got a response from the image gallery. Okay, now do you see something here? Do you see how if request code equals plant results and if request code equals image gallery, you see how that makes a lot more sense than if I said request code equals 1 up here and request code equals 10 down here? That's where constants really pay off. With constants, the name plant results is much more descriptive than the number 1. The name image gallery is much more descriptive than the number 10. So we need fewer comments here because we can tell by the variable name what's actually getting passed back to us. And I choose save. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to figure out what image was selected. Now receiving and interpreting the image is going to take a few more steps than we had with the camera, because we're not getting an image in this case, we're actually getting a file location. So we have to take that file location, we have to interpret it and determine what file is there. Then we have to open a stream to that file location, a few extra steps. So it's not as straightforward as the camera, but once again it's going to give us some good experience. So what I'm going to do, remember, any data returned to us is returned through this intent data object and the method signature. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say data dot get data. Sounds kind of redundant. I'm going to hold Control 1 Assign to new local variable. Note that this is storing the data in a URI data type, which we said that's kind of like a file path. So we're going to say photo location, like so. That's fine. Okay. Find the path of the selected image. Okay. URI photo location equals data.getData. Okay. Next, what we'll do is we need to open this as a stream of data or a stream of bytes, if you prefer. This gets kind of tricky. This gets a little bit tricky. This is one of those things where you just kind of have to, assume some of this is boilerplate. Get content resolver dot open input stream. Okay, and then photo location. Okay. Control 1. Assign to new local variable. That'll work. Okay. Now, another thing that makes this tricky is that Java knows that certain things can go wrong here. And it wants us to be proactive about that and think of what we will do if something goes wrong. So that's called a checked exception. Some people don't like Java because of its checked exceptions. Other people do. Even people with a lot of experience don't like Java because of its checked exceptions. I fall into the camp that I do like the checked exceptions because I have to consciously think of what I would do if something were to go wrong. Now, what could go wrong here? What could go wrong is that the file doesn't exist. That'd be a very strange situation to be in, but it is possible. So the fix for this is hold down Control, press 1, hit surround with try catch. Later on, we can get into a more involved discussion of what exactly try catch is. Let's just leave it like this for the moment. Okay, so a stream of data from the file. Okay, and we'll now what if something goes wrong? Let's just alert the user. Alert the user that something went wrong. The trick is if you don't do this, if you don't catch the exception properly, your program will crash. What happens if your program crashes? You've neglected quality. Of our triangle of quality, time, and functionality, you've neglected quality. What's the consequence of neglecting quality? You get bad ratings in the App Store, which you can't get rid of. So let's think seriously about this. What I'm going to do is say toast.makeText, this comma, text is going to be unable to open image. We just need to say something. There's probably a better way to do it, but we just need to say something. Duration, toast.length long, and then .show. So that will show us a message unable to open the file location. And we save. One little side note, and I want to show, this isn't related to intents, but I do want to show this. Notice we have hard-coded text. That's a no-no. Eclipse and Android makes it easy to send this to that strings.xml file. We just hold Control 1 and click the little Android icon that says extract string. What that is going to do is it's going to create a name value pair for this in strings XML so that it can be externalized. Okay, we'll go ahead and choose OK. One thing I don't like is it just puts this constant here, which makes absolutely no sense. You have to wrap this with the method called getString. Okay. Now again, this is good for internationalization purposes so that you can translate your app easily into other languages. And I know that sounds like, oh gosh, that sounds like one more thing I have to do, but it's well worth it. You know, I work regularly for my full-time job for customers who are outside of the US, and a lot of times their point of sale system will be in a different language than English, a language that I don't know. And I will log in with my ID, and it switches from whatever the native language is over to English. And it's really interesting to watch that work. That opens up a lot of opportunities if you want to get in the business of doing software. Okay, it opens up a lot of opportunities. Okay, so back up to our implicit intent. Open input stream. We got our stream. The next thing is there's something called a Bitmap Factory. And what that will do is it will allow you to take a stream, like the open input stream, and convert it to a bitmap. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. Bitmap Factory decode stream. Okay, decode stream. There we go. And now we say open input stream. That's what I meant. This takes a stream of data. I'll put comments here. Take a stream of data and convert it to a bitmap. Okay. Let's say control 1, assign to new local variable. Actually, let's assign to new field. Okay. Tab, bitmap, we're going to call this selected image. That'll be fine. Ooh, I shouldn't have done a capital M though. Let me fix that. Selected image, go to the top, and selected image, and there we go. Okay. There we go. That just capitalization looks a little bit better. Now what we can do is, whoops, assign this image to our image view. Okay. And we go up to the top. And just like we did before in our GPS a plant screen, we need to get access to the image view on this layout. Okay, we've seen this before in the prior video, so I'll kind of do this in a little bit of fast forward. Find view by ID, r.id.img plant search. Okay, that's going to get the image from the layout. Control 1. Assign to new field. New field so we can make it visible among multiple methods in this class. Image view, and we'll call it IMG plant search. That's fine. That's the image view that's on our search screen. Okay. Control Shift O, organize imports. And then we know find view by ID does not know it's returning an image view to us. So we have to give it a hint. We have to tell it. We Control 1, add cast. There we go. And save. I know the save button is off screen a little bit here, but just Control S to save. Okay, back to our on activity result. Assign this image to our view. That's where we left off. IMG plant search dot set image bitmap, selected image. And if all works well, we should be all set now. What we'll do is I will save, Control S. I'm going to Control M. I'm going to load this in the debugger one more time, and we're just going to see if we can pull up, to debug as, there we go. We're just going to see if we can pull up an image from the gallery view. We're already at near the 30-minute mark, which is when I begin to really want to cut off a video. I start to get a little bit uncomfortable just to keep it within a manageable amount of time. So what we'll do is we're just going to see if this pulls up the image view. If it does, as long as everything works okay, in our next video, we'll see how we can take that URI and then send it to another totally different Android application using an implicit intent. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll give this a moment to refresh. It might take just a moment. I'm going to pause the recording, and we'll bring it back as soon as the app comes up. Now the debugger's loaded. I'm going to go to select a plant. And we're going to see that we have our additional button. Okay, now we have select a picture. And this is going to bring up the gallery view that's going to show all of the images currently in our gallery. And they're just camera shots I've taken before with the emulator. I go ahead and pick one. And again, the emulator's a little bit goofy here. It doesn't actually select until you see the red border come across the screen. On a normal phone, that'd take a couple clicks. On the emulator, sometimes you have to nudge it a little bit more. Nonetheless, take a look. We have our picture, and look where we are. It loaded in the image view as we expected, and it loaded using that gallery view. So that will wrap us up for the image gallery view. There is one more thing I've neglected that I do want to take care of though before stopping this video. If we go to the GPS of plant activity, if we look at on activity result, let me zoom up on this. We've been ignoring this result code. And the result code tells us if everything went okay or not. We should really only do this logic if that result code is okay. If not, it will leave us prone to crashes. So let me wrap another if test around here. If result code equal result okay. Okay. Result OK means we've received the data that we want to receive. If the user were to cancel out, we would not have received that data. And so that leaves us in a state where we're trying to get data that doesn't exist. So I'm going to wrap this entire line in a result OK. Now you see it's kind of sloppy. Look, we have one if test right after another. We have curlies right after another. We don't want to do that. It's really better to, every time we have curlies, to do an indent. That's easy to do. Just highlight what we want to indent, hold Control, press I, and that fixes our indents. So now I'll put a comment in here that says, only do this work if we received a good result. Let me also fix that. I'll save this, Control S. Let me do that as well with the advanced search activity, because that also has an on activity result. Don't forget to do this. I did initially in Plant Places Mobile. It led to some quality issues, and remember, quality, time, functionality. We want to focus on quality. If result code equal result. Okay, so this is only going to execute if we did get a proper result. Okay, open curly. Close curly. I can just do Control A, Control I. That will fix all my indents, and save. And then I can Control M. We'll make sure that this still works properly, which it should. I feel much better with that. I didn't want to commit this to GitHub without actually doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and debug and just make sure it works as we expect, and then we're all set. I'll pause for a moment while we let the debugger come up. Now with the debugger up, we see I can go to select a plant. Just as we did before, everything works just the same. It's going to open up the gallery view. With any luck, when I hit search picture or select a picture, it's going to bring up the gallery view. Okay, I can choose one of the pictures. It's a little bit touchy on clicking there. And here's the difference. What's going to happen now is I select a picture, I go back to the search screen. What I should normally do from here is hit search. But let's say I hit the back button, which is not a normal flow. It's going to gracefully take me back to the previous screen. If I didn't have that request OK in there, it would have failed, because hitting the back button is doing a cancel, and we're not actually returning any data back when we do a cancel. So that's now fixed. That's all good. So what did we look at today? If I Control M, we're going to see that we used an implicit intent with both data, which includes our path, and also type, which includes the image type we want. So we've said what we want to do. We want to pick something. Where do we want to pick it? From the directory pictures. What do we want to pick? We want to pick an image. And then start activity for result starts that activity. On the other side now, we have our on activity result. We said only if everything went to plan, if it didn't cancel out. Then we're going to go in, open up, if we got the image gallery, we're going to find the URI of the image that was picked. We're going to open that as a stream and decode it as a bitmap, and then we're going to show that on the current page. So in our next video, we'll take a look at how we can take this information and call an implicit intent that we make in an entirely different application. So thanks for watching. Don't forget quiz question suggestions, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.